We now turn to a critical debate reshaping the nation's economy. As South Korea races to lead in the AI revolution, the industry warns that a 43-year-old regulation, the strict separation of banking and commerce, is blocking the massive investment needed to survive. Our Kim Do-yeon is here to break it down. Do-yeon, let's start with the basics. What exactly is this regulation?
Right. To simply put, the separation of banking and commerce is something that prevents industrial companies from owning banks and banks from owning industrial companies. Now, it has been the bedrock of our financial system for over 43 years, like you said. The primary goal is to prevent powerful conglomerates or chaebars from treating financial affiliates as their private ATMs. The fear is that if a manufacturing giant owns a bank, it might use depositors' money to bail out failing subsidiaries, putting the entire financial system at risk.
Well, Do-yeon, it does sound like a necessary safety net. Now, if it's been around for decades, why is it suddenly a hot potato?
Now, it all comes down to the sheer scale of the investment required. Now, we're entering an era where conventional funding methods can't really keep up with the investments needed to boost AI technology, right? So the debate intensified last month after President Lee Jae-myung met with OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, alongside leaders from Samsung and SK, the two biggest chip makers in the country, of course, and among the top in the world. Now, following that meeting, the president signaled that the status quo was no longer sustainable. Take a listen.
The president stated that we must fully discuss this regarding limited sectors and approach the matter from a highly pragmatic perspective.
Now, that word pragmatic is key. Under current laws, general holding companies are banned from owning financial investment firms. This effectively blocks them from quickly raising the liquid capital needed for agile tech investments.
Well, Do-yeon, you mentioned astronomical cost. Just how big of a funding gap are we talking about here?
Right. There is a massive disconnect. Some in the government argue that its new National Growth Fund worth about 150 trillion won or $107 billion is sufficient. But the industry argues this is a drop in the bucket. To build just 1 gigawatt scale data center costs 70 trillion won. That's around $50 billion. So the government's entire fund would barely cover 2 centers, while competitors such as the US and China are building hundreds of these. Now, SK Chairman Choi Tae-won, also head of the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, expressed frustration that their request is being misunderstood.
Our message is being distorted, as if we are just complaining about a lack of funds or demanding that the separation of banking and commerce be scrapped. That is not our intention. We are simply asking for a new system capable of handling this scale of investment.
So the current financial pipes are just too narrow, yet there's still a strong opposition. Who are they?
Right. The opposition is strong, coming from both civic groups and the country's top regulator. Now, civic groups like Economic Reform Solidarity argue that loosening these rules is a tailored favor for SK Group. Unlike Samsung or Hyundai, SK operates under a structure with a holding group that limits its ability to mobilize cash. Critics ask why the nation's economic backbone should be altered just to solve one conglomerate's liquidity issue. Then there is the Fair Trade Commission. FTC Chair Ju Byung-gi has drawn a hard line stating we must not shake the backbone of the economic system. Instead of amending the General Fair Trade Act, he suggests a compromise, a temporary special act strictly limited to strategic industries or using special purpose vehicles to raise funds without full deregulation. Right now, the rule prohibits groups from not only owning banks, but also special investment firms as well.
So the regulator offers a detour but refuses to tear down the wall, right? Finally, how does this compare to other major economies, namely, the United States?
Right. Actually, the U.S. is strictly separating banks and commerce to protect its banking system, and it's actually where the idea comes from. However, the market reality is different. U.S. tech giants like Microsoft or Google have such immense cash reserves and access to diverse capital markets that they don't need to own banks. In Korea, the market is smaller and companies rely more on loans. That's why our companies feel the restriction of this law much more acutely than their American counterparts.
I see. Do-yeon, thank you so much for the comprehensive coverage tonight.
Thank you for having me.